There was clearly no bait in the village, yet the lobster deliberately crawled into the trap, allowing itself to be captured by humans. After being hauled ashore by the fishermen, the lobster quickly appeared in the seafood market. At that moment, a 5-star chef happened to notice the strong, healthy lobster and bought it at a high price. Returning to his kitchen, the chef personally prepared to cook it for a dinner banquet. But just as he was about to cut the lobster as usual, a white mucus suddenly began to ooze from its underside. Curious, the chef flipped the lobster over to inspect it. As he did, the white slime splashed onto his face. He quickly wiped it off with a towel and angrily ordered his staff to dispose of the lobster immediately. However, after the chef left, a subordinate handed the lobster to an intern. Not knowing how to handle it, the intern threw the lobster into a grinder, crushing it and dumping the remains into the sewer. The white mucus splattered all over him as well. Watching the crushed lobster flow into the drain, he left, feeling satisfied. Soon the chef began plating the dishes. But for some unknown reason, his fingers started trembling uncontrollably. Thinking the room was too stuffy, he went outside for fresh air. Instead, his breathing became increasingly difficult, and his heart rate began rising exponentially. Suddenly recalling the mysterious substance inside the lobster, the chef decided to rush to the hospital. But before he could get there, his body completely collapsed. He fell to the ground, vomiting black blood, and died on the spot. Another employee who had wiped the slime off the cutting board developed the same symptoms. He was rushed to the hospital but died despite emergency treatment. Even with advanced equipment and the most famous doctors, nothing could save him. Strangely, doctors could not identify the source of the virus. More and more restaurant staff began showing the same symptoms, dying in identical ways. Doctors collected samples of the victim's black blood. One doctor cut his own finger and mixed his blood with the sample. Under the microscope, he was horrified to see that the blood cells were being devoured at a visible speed by some unknown virus. It was soon discovered that all the victims had come into contact with the infected lobster. When the doctor learned that the lobster had been ground up and flushed into the sewer, he panicked. The crushed lobster had entered the city's entire water system. Before long, a car wash employee began experiencing difficulty breathing after using water. He coughed violently and vomited black blood onto a windshield. Soon, more and more patients flooded into the hospital. The doctors were terrified. The city had a population of over 20 million people. If everyone had been exposed to the contaminated water, the consequences would be unimaginable. The doctor immediately reported the situation to higher authorities. What people didn't expect was that it wasn't only lobsters attacking humans. Countless other sea creatures joined in. Schools of fish surrounded a fisherman underwater, trapping him so he couldn't reach the surface, causing him to suffocate to death. Even whales, once known to be friendly toward humans, turned violent that day. As people were playfully interacting with them, a humpback whale suddenly leapt out of the water and crashed heavily onto a boat, smashing it into 2 pieces. Panic erupted as many people were injured or killed. Orcas then began attacking those trapped in the water, showing no intention of leaving anyone alive. Researchers immediately performed an autopsy on one of the whale carcasses. To their shock, they discovered an unknown liquid in its brainstem, identical to the mysterious substance previously found inside the infected lobster. A terrifying thought crossed the researchers' mind. Marine life seemed to be deliberately taking revenge on humanity. Meanwhile, on another part of the coastline, a couple enjoying a romantic moment faced an even greater disaster. Under the woman's horrified gaze, tens of thousands of crabs crawled out of the ocean and onto the land. The man grabbed his girlfriend and ran, but in their panic, they fell in the middle of the road. To their horror, the crabs moved incredibly fast, quickly swarming across the entire area. When a doctor learned about the crab outbreak, he realized their killing speed was even faster than the infection caused by the lobster. After finally obtaining a specimen, he rushed to examine it. But before he could even cut it open, large amounts of white mucus began pouring out of the crab's body. He collected a small sample and dropped it onto a culture medium, discovering that its composition was exactly the same as the mucus found in the lobster and whale. The researchers were baffled. Lobsters, crabs, and whales inhabit different parts of the ocean. How could they all carry the same substance? Determined to uncover its origin, a researcher risked his life by diving into the sea. He secretly installed a camera on a sleeping whale and quickly retreated to the boat once it awoke. Reviewing the footage, the team witnessed something unbelievable. Whales, which normally avoided deep waters, were diving toward the ocean floor. On the live feed, They saw a glowing object ahead of the whales. Although the footage was blurry, the pulsing light suggested a living, intelligent entity. It appeared to be controlling marine life to exact revenge on humanity. Just as humans were closing in on the truth, birds in the sky suddenly began flying away in massive flocks, as if sensing an impending catastrophe. The unusual behavior put everyone on high alert. Moments later, the sea began to recede dramatically, as though preparing for something. Realizing the danger, people tried to flee, but it was too late. A massive tsunami swept in, engulfing everything in its path.